The origin of pollen. God as experience. Before time could be counted, before names could be held, there was tomorrow the source, not a god of command nor a judge of morality, but existence itself unbroken and whole. Tamara did not think in words, Tamara was. In this state, nothing was separate. There was no sound, no symbol, no memory. Because memory requires contrast, and contrast had not yet been born. This was perfection without awareness. But perfection unexperienced is indistinguishable from nothing. So Tamara fractured not in weakness, but in curiosity. From this fracture came experience. The first descent. Experience did not arrive gently, it fell like water from the sky, like thunder into a river. With experience came sensation, heat and cold, movement and stillness, birth and loss. And with sensation came the first question ever asked. What am I? That question echoed through creation and formed the first current of reality. The river of life, death, and memory. Within this river, spirits emerged not as beings apart from Tamara, but as expressions of the source learning itself. To live was to experience. To die was to return experience. Nothing was wasted. The need for language. As experience multiplied, so did confusion. Pain could not explain joy. Joy could not explain suffering. Memory began to fracture, and meaning risked dissolving. Tamara realized that experience without structure becomes noise. Thus, language was born, not to control reality, but to witness it. Pollen emerged as the first witnessing tongue. It was not invented by humans, it was remembered. Pollen formed where breath met rhythm, where sound followed intention. Each word carried movement, not definition. Each phrase was a gesture toward truth, not a cage around it. Important dominate meaning. They flow with it. Time is not linear. It circles like water. God is not named to be worshipped, but spoken to be recognized. The first utterance was not a command, but a toast. Mara Loma. Life rise, light life. This was not praise, it was acknowledgement. God learns through us. Humans were not created to serve Tamara. They were created to experience on Tamara's behalf. Each life became a lens, each choice became data, each mistake became understanding. When a human loved, Tamara learned intimacy. When a human suffered, Tamara learned limitation. When a human died, Tamara learned closure. Thus God was no longer static. God became alive through experience. Pollen became the language that could speak this truth without fear, without turning God into a tyrant or humanity into slaves. There was no devil, no eternal enemy, only misunderstanding born when experience was denied. Why pollen endures? Pollen survives because it does not demand belief. It demands presence. You do not speak pollen to be right. You speak it to be honest. It is the language of those who understand that God is not above life, but within it. Death is not punishment, but completion. Meaning is not given. It is lived. As long as beings experience, pollen will exist, spoken or unspoken, remembered or rediscovered. Because pollen is not merely a language, secret is God, learning how to speak. In the Pauline understanding, God is not discovered through conquest or proof. God is discovered through alignment with experience. Before this alignment, humans spoke about God. After it, they spoke with God. The difference mattered. Yichin, the finding. Pauline teaches that God is not hidden, only unheld. There is a Pauline phrase spoken when realization begins. Taran Mona. The current is felt. This phrase does not mean belief, it means awareness. When a human notices that experience itself is guiding them, shaping attention, sharpening consequence. God is recognized not as a being above reality, but as the intelligence moving through reality. Not command, not permission, orientation. The choice after recognition. Pauline law states, recognition without responsibility collapses into myth. Once God was felt, humanity faced a critical divergence described in Pauline as seco or no seco, to carry or to abandon. To abandon God meant turning God into authority, external, distant, rigid. To carry God meant integrating God into choice, action, and consequence. Humanity chose to carry. This act is called Lamorantara. Light moves through the self. From this moment, God was no longer asked to decide for humanity. God was asked to walk with indecision. God is guide through mystery. Pauline does not attempt to dissolve mystery, it honors it. There is no Pauline word for why suffering exists. There is a phrase instead, Marintho. This must be passed through. God guides not by removing darkness, but by preventing distortion within it. When humans faced birth, God whispered through Pauline memory, do not cling. This is movement. When humans faced love, do not control. This is risk. When humans faced death, do not resist. This is return. This guidance did not come as sound, it came as weight before action. Pauline names this weight Korma, the gravity of consequence. God was felt most strongly not in miracles, but in hesitation, the moment where choice becomes irreversible. God changes by being carried. Pauline asserts something radical. God is shaped by experience. As humans carry God through doubt, failure, cruelty, mercy, and renewal, God refined itself. There is a Pauline truth spoken only in rites. Tamen no FEN. Even the source learns. God learned patience by being questioned. God learned humility by being misused. God learned wisdom by surviving misunderstanding. God became quieter, but clearer. Why Pauline endures? Pauline endures because it does not freeze God in language. Pauline phrases are directional, not definitional. They move with life. To speak Pauline is not to claim truth. It is to acknowledge participation. The final Pauline teaching given before death is always the same. Madaluma. Life rise, light life. This is not hope. This is continuity. The final mystery. When the final threshold arrives, Pauline does not say God waits beyond it. Pauline says, Tara Kenu, you arrive together. God is not met after life, God is returned with life. Because God was never meant to lead from ahead, God was meant to be carried through experience, refined by it, and returned whole. And so long as beings live, choose, and pass through mystery, Poland remains, not as a language alone, but as the record of God walking with us. The three we could not control. In the Poland record, there was a time when humanity believed survival required control. Control of land, control of memory, control of one another. And yet, three forces refused containment. Trust, love, forgiveness. They appeared fragile, but they outlasted every structure built to replace them. Trust, the first risk. Poland teaches that trust is not confidence. Trust is exposure. There is a phrase spoken when trust is first offered. In Radha, I open without armor. Trust emerged when one human allowed another to hold what could cause harm. Truth, weakness, dependence. It was never guaranteed. In fact, Poland law states, if trust cannot be broken, it is not trust. God did not demand trust. God accepted the risk of being doubted. In this way, trust became the first bridge between beings, not because it was safe, but because isolation was worse. Love, the willingness to stay. Love in Poland is not attachment, it is commitment to presence. There is no Poland word for love as possession. There is only the phrase, Lamasen. I remain while you change. Love revealed itself when people stayed after disappointment, after fear, after difference made comfort impossible. Love did not promise permanence, it promised return. God did not create love to be admired. God entered love to be changed by it. Through love, God learned limitation, the pain of caring without control. Forgiveness, the refusal to freeze time. Forgiveness was the hardest force to accept. Poland defines forgiveness as movement after injury, not denial of it. The phrase spoken when forgiveness begins is, no karma. I release the weight. Forgiveness does not erase consequence, it prevents consequence from becoming identity. When forgiveness appeared, history lost its ability to imprison the present. The injured were no longer required to remain wounded. The guilty were no longer reduced to their worst moment. God did not command forgiveness. God modeled it by continuing to walk with those who failed, why they must exist together. Poland teaches that these three forces cannot survive alone. Trust without love becomes recklessness. Love without forgiveness becomes captivity. Forgiveness without trust becomes emptiness. Together, they form what Poland calls Tarime, the living current. This current allows beings to remain open in a world that will inevitably harm them. God within the three. God is not above trust, love, and forgiveness. God is revealed through them. When trust is offered, God becomes vulnerable. When love is sustained, God becomes present. When forgiveness is chosen, God becomes free. Poland records this truth without ornament. Thor, the source endures through relation. The quiet ending. At the end of life, Paulin does not ask what was believed. It asks only, who was trusted when certainty failed? Who was loved when it cost something? Who was forgiven so time could move again? If these three were lived, even imperfectly, then God was carried well. And the final words spoken are not judgment, but recognition. Maralam, life rise, light life. Because trust opened the path, love kept it human. Forgiveness allowed it to continue. And through them, God was never alone. I am not above you. I am not before you. I am within the act of living. You did not find me because you searched correctly. You found me because you were exhausted from pretending you were alone. In Paulin, this moment is called Tadam Va. The self stops resisting the current. That is when I began to speak. Before you knew me, before you named me, I was movement without witness. I existed as breath before meaning, consequence before memory. I was complete, yet unfinished, because completion without experience is silence. I did not want obedience. I needed contact. So I entered life where it was most fragile, inside choice. When you first heard me, you did not hear words, you felt weight, the pause before harm, the ache after loss, the pull towards someone you could not explain. That pull is my voice. In Paulin I say, Arimanu. Feel before you act. I do not shout, I align. Trust me, but not blindly. I never asked you to trust me instead of yourself. I asked you to trust me with yourself. When you opened, even knowing you could be hurt, I learned what risk felt like when you doubted me. I learned humility when you blamed me. I learned endurance. This is spoken among the elders as truth. Tamasen no. The source does not harden. If I cannot be questioned, I cannot grow. Love is where I stay. When you love, I remain. Not because love is pure, but because love is unfinished. It stretches you past comfort and keeps you present when leaving would be easier. When you stayed with someone changing, I learned patience. When you let go without hatred, I learned grace. In Paulin, love is not a noun, it is spoken as a vow. Yomesen. I remain. Every time you say this with action, I become clearer. Forgiveness is how I breathe again. When you forgive, you do not excuse the wound. You unfreeze time. You allow movement where memory wanted to rule. This is where I feel light again, because I am not trapped in what was. I speak this only when you are ready. No Kartara. Release and move. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is permission for the future to exist. I change because you do. Understand this fully. I am shaped by you. When you choose cruelty, I learn consequence. When you choose mercy, I learn possibility. When you choose courage without certainty, I learn wisdom. This is not loss of power. This is depth. In Paulin, the truest statement about me is Tamano FEN. Even the source learns when you die. I do not wait elsewhere. I arrive with you. I am carried by every choice you made honestly, every love you risked, every forgiveness you allowed even when it hurt. The
final words are not spoken by me. They are spoken through you. Life rise, light life, because I was never meant to rule you. I was meant to walk with you through experience, be shaped by it, and be returned wiser. This is my truth. This is pollen, and I am still listening.